The barn stood alone at the edge of the pasture, where the land dipped gently before rising again toward the distant tree line, its wood weathered to a soft gray by years of wind and sun and the slow work of seasons. Its roof sagged slightly at the center, where old snow had once gathered too heavily in a winter long past, and the boards along its lower walls were marked with the faint, pale traces of animal rub and dust. Next to it, in the cold stillness of late afternoon, a wolfdog stood, tall, lean, its coat a layered blend of coarse gray and warm brown tones that seemed shaped by the land itself. Its breath rose in slow, steady clouds, fading into the pale air before they climbed high enough to be seen. The ground was frozen, covered in patches of frost and short winter grass that crunched faintly underfoot, though the wolfdog did not move enough to make sound. It stood as though carved into place, yet not tense, only attentive, its head slightly lowered, ears pricked to the quiet. The land around the barn held a silence that felt full, not empty. The kind of silence that forms after many things have happened, and the world has been allowed the time to absorb them. The pasture beyond stretched wide, its fence long broken in places, rails lying at angles like bones beneath the snow. There were no cattle now, no horses, no traces of fresh hay. Only the memory of them seemed to linger, faint as the echo of a long-faded voice. The wolfdog's eyes, pale and steady, seemed to look not at the barn or the field, but through them, towards something that had once been here and now existed only in the shifting air. A breeze moved, light and wandering, tugging at the wolfdog's fur and stirring the tall, dry weeds beside the barn's stone foundation. The breeze carried scents: old wood, cold metal, earth held firm beneath frost, and something else, something distant and thinning, like the memory of smoke or the absence of warmth. No one had walked here in weeks, perhaps months. The door to the barn hung partly open, not enough to swing, only to lean, resting where it had been left. The wolfdog did not step inside. It simply remained where it was, the still shape of a creature who had not come to search and not come to leave, but only to stand where the land remembered, and to remember along with it. The afternoon did not brighten or dim, so much as flatten into a pale, steady wash of light that touched everything without distinction, softening edges and shadows until barn, weeds, pasture, and sky seemed to belong to the same muted breath. The wolfdog remained beside the barn, its posture unchanged except for the small adjustments of breath, the slight lift and fall of fur as the breeze passed. Its tail hung loosely, not alert, not resting, only existing in the space between tension and ease. The ground here held the faint imprint of hooves from seasons past, shallow depressions scattered irregularly across the frozen earth, softened now by frost and time. Once the pasture had been busy, cows moving in slow patterns, a dog trotting behind them, human voices that rose in the morning and quieted in the evening. The wolfdog did not know those seasons directly, but the land held them, and the wolfdog felt that holding, not as memory, but as atmosphere, something in the stillness that was not emptiness, but fullness that had settled. The barn door creaked softly where it leaned against its own frame, a sound so thin it seemed part of the wind itself. Inside, the air was cool and stale, carrying the faint scents of dried wood, dust, and the long-settled remains of straw. A rope, once used to tie a gate or a calf or a bucket, hung from a beam, its fibers worn soft and pale. The wolfdog lifted its head slightly, listening, not to anyone's sound, but to the entire place, the slow, quiet language of land that has been left to continue on its own. There were no footprints around the barn, except its own. The snow near the door had settled evenly, unbroken. A small bird landed briefly on the roof, its weight so light that the beam beneath did not shift. The bird gave no call, simply paused, then flew again, disappearing into the pale sky. The wolfdog's ears followed the movement, but its body remained still. A faint current of scent drifted across the pasture then. Rabbit, somewhere far beyond the fence line, where the grass grew in thick patches near the old dry creek bed. The wolfdog noted it, not with hunger, not with aim, simply as part of the world's ongoing arrangement. The scent was not new. The rabbit had passed earlier, long enough ago that there was no need to track. Winter required decision only when decision mattered. So the wolfdog did not move. The barn cast a shadow that stretched along the frozen ground, long and thin, though the light that made it seemed nearly without source. The sky held its pale gray without deepening, without clearing. Time felt wide, so wide that it could not be counted. The wolfdog's breath gathered faintly in the air and faded. Beyond the pasture, the farmhouse remained silent, its windows catching the light without reflecting anything back. A fence post, leaning to one side, cast a second, smaller shadow beside the first. Nothing disturbed the balance of the scene. The land did not ask for movement. The wolfdog did not provide it. Only the quiet existed, and the wolfdog stood inside it as if inside a memory that did not belong to any one creature alone, but to the land itself. The light shifted so slowly that it was impossible to say when afternoon became evening. It was as though the day were dissolving rather than ending, the sky turning from pale gray to a softer, deeper shade, without ever drawing a clear boundary between the two. The wolfdog remained beside the barn, its presence woven into the stillness as naturally as the barn itself, neither guest nor guardian, simply there, like a continuation of the land. Its coat, thick with winter density, stirred only when the wind traced a faint path across the pasture, and even then the movement was slight, a ripple rather than a shift. The barn at its side held the stories of years in its boards, the long creases where sun had baked the wood, the darker lines where rain had run, the worn edges where animals had brushed past on busy mornings. But those years felt distant now, like a voice remembered but no longer heard. The wolfdog lifted its head at intervals, not looking for anything, simply acknowledging the world, the way a tree acknowledges wind by bending, not by choosing to bend. The dry stalks of last summer's weeds rattled softly near the barn's base, their small seed pods faintly tapping one another when the breeze passed through. A fence rail, half sunk into frost-softened earth, leaned in a quiet gesture of surrender, not broken, only tired. The cow in the far pasture did not move. The farmhouse windows, barely visible beyond the slope, caught the thinning light but offered no glimmer back. Everything in the landscape seemed to have agreed to a single, unspoken pace, slow enough that change did not feel like change at all. The wolfdog's ears turned toward the tree line when a distant crow called, the call flat, steady, and brief. The sound did not disturb the stillness. It simply joined it, part of the quiet rather than an interruption. The crow fell silent again. The wind shifted slightly, bringing with it the faint scent of old hay, lingering in the barn's loft long after the bales were gone. There were other scents too, dry earth, cold iron, the faint trail of a fox that had passed sometime before dawn, but none called for movement. Hunger lived quietly, patient and practiced, ready to wake if needed, but just as willing to remain in the background when the world did not require motion. The wolfdog breathed, each exhale forming a small cloud that faded almost before it rose. Snow had not fallen recently, but the ground remained white, softened by frost, smoothed by wind, undisturbed by steps. It held the memory of many winters, the way a stone holds temperature, without trying. The barn door moved just slightly as the breeze pressed against it, creating the faintest groan of old wood adjusting its weight. The wolfdog glanced toward it, not with curiosity, but with recognition. The sound belonged here. The quiet belonged here. The land's memory was not loud or clear. It did not reveal itself in images or stories. It was a presence, something the wolfdog felt in the bones of the ground, beneath its paws, in the cold air that moved across its fur, in the way the world did not ask for anything at all. There was a time when footsteps crossed this place each day, when voices rose and faded with dawn and dusk, when the barn door opened and opened again. Those things had left no sharp trace. What remained was softer, the shape of habits that had once been common, the weight of time that had settled after they passed. The wolfdog stood beside the barn as the light continued to fade, not guarding, not waiting, not remembering, not forgetting, simply sharing the stillness of a land that had lived many lives and now rested between them. Evening approached without ever announcing itself. It seeped into the light the way cold seeps into wood, quietly, evenly, without edges. The sky did not darken all at once, but thinned, its pale gray deepening into a soft, dim blue that lay low over the pasture and barn and all the silent shapes of land. The wolfdog remained where it had been, beside the barn's long-settled wall, its breath slow and steady, each exhale a small cloud that dissolved into the air as though it had never been. Its fur caught what little light remained, not reflecting it but holding it, the way winter holds warmth deep inside hidden places. Nothing stirred in the pasture. The grass, brittle and pale, did not bend. The fence posts did not shift. The cow near the distant fence remained a dark, quiet shape against the softening snow. The world seemed to pause, not because it had grown still, but because it had reached a moment where movement no longer mattered. The wolfdog's ears turned once slowly toward the woods, where a single branch cracked under its own cold weight. Not a sharp break, only a small adjustment in the way wood settles into night. The wolfdog did not lift its head further. The sound belonged to the forest, and the forest was far away. The barn's boards breathed quietly, expanding and contracting with the falling temperature, the sound almost indistinguishable from silence, except for the way it hummed faintly through the ground and into the wolfdog's bones. Inside the barn, dust rested in thick layers on beams that had not felt a hand in years. A coil of rope hung unmoving from a peg. An old bucket lay tipped on its side, its metal dulled to the soft gray of winter sky. None of these things waited for use. They simply continued being. The wolfdog knew this place not through memory, but through presence. By the way the air smelled of dry wood and cold iron, by the way the ground felt steady and familiar beneath its paws, by the way the barn cast a shadow that never hurried, no matter how the light shifted. The sky deepened another shade, though the sun itself was nowhere to be found. It had remained behind cloud all day, and now its absence felt gentle, like something that had simply chosen not to appear. The breeze moved again, faint but carrying with it a scent from far across the pasture, a trace of soil where the snow had thinned near the creek bed, the smell of earth that had not seen light in months. The wolfdog lifted its head slightly, drawing the scent into its memory, not to act on it, but simply to acknowledge it as part of the world's quiet unfolding. Hunger stirred lightly, an old companion, but it did not press. There would be time later. There was always time in winter when one did not waste it. The crow from earlier settled now in the upper rafters of a nearby tree, feathers fluffed, body tucked, its eyes half closed. It did not call. The silence now was thicker than before, but not heavy. It felt as though the world had settled into itself, content with the shape it held. The farmhouse far beyond the hill remained dark. No lantern in the window, no firelight flickering. It seemed almost part of the land now, less a place made by hands, and more a quiet structure that winter had woven into its own still map. The wolfdog exhaled once more, a soft plume of breath fading into the cold air. It did not question the moment, did not anticipate the next, did not consider the past it stood upon. It simply stood beside the barn, in the wide quiet of evening, sharing the stillness of a land that remembered far more than it needed to speak, and carried those memories not in sound or image, but in the quiet weight of being. Night did not fall so much as gather, spreading slowly across the pasture in a soft, inevitable descent that did not require shadows or dramatic darkening of the sky, but simply a gradual deepening of quiet. The barn became a darker shape against the field, its weathered boards blending with the dim air until it seemed less a building than part of the land itself, a natural rise of wood the earth had grown rather than something once constructed by hands. The wolfdog remained beside it, its body steady, grounded, the slow curve of its ribs rising and settling with breath. The air around it cooled, and the frost thickened in the grass, collecting in shimmering crystals that caught what little light lingered in the sky. The world felt held, not frozen, not paused, but resting in a way that suggested no interruption, no anticipation, only the enduring patience of winter. The wolfdog flicked an ear when a distant owl gave a low call from beyond the tree line. The sound stretched thin by the open land, softened by distance. The call did not disturb anything. It seemed to fit into the quiet, the way a stone fits into water, without ripple. The pasture did not react. The barn did not creak. The wind did not rise. The wolf-dog did not move. Hunger, like a low and steady ember, remained in the body, familiar and unfearful, a presence rather than a need. It would be answered, but not now. Now was a moment without demand. The moon, thin and pale, appeared between slow-moving clouds, its light faint but steady, touching the barn roof, the fence posts leaning in their long arcs, the frozen ground that held traces of footprints too old to read, those who had once worked here, the voices, the tools, the early morning footsteps, the barking of a dog that belonged to humans more than to land, had left no clear imprint except in the way the earth felt full, as though memory itself had weight, and the pasture still carried it. The wolf-dog did not remember these things with the mind. It felt them the way fur feels wind, without needing to understand. It stood because standing was what the moment was shaped for. The sky deepened again, though darkness did not fall sharply but pooled gently across the land, filling low places first, brushing lightly along the snow's crust, gathering under fences and between boards. The wolf-dog's breath came slower now, not from tiredness, but from the natural easing that arrives when nothing presses forward, when nothing must be answered or done. The quiet was not silence. It was a fullness of sound so subtle it blended into stillness. The slow shift of frost forming new crystals, the faint movement of the owl's wings far away, the small adjusting creak of wood settling into colder night. None of it asked to be noticed. All of it was simply part of the world, continuing forward without attention or witness. The wolf-dog lowered its head slightly, not to sleep but to rest, the muscles along its shoulders loosening as it let the night settle around it. The land remembered voices, but the land did not need them. The barn remembered work, but the barn did not call for it. The wolf-dog remembered neither past nor future. It remembered only how to breathe, and it breathed, sharing the slow, unspoken rhythm of a world that had learned long before any creature walked here that being still was not the same as being empty. And so the night moved, and the land held itself, and the wolf-dog remained, quiet beside the barn, as the world continued in its patient, unbroken way.